All right, next up, we have Ashley Taylor, who spoke at Transformative Impact Summit Africa in Zanzibar about mutual credit systems, and has been doing some really innovative work in the space for a long time. So let's make her feel welcome.
So today I'm talking about Good Standing. This is an app that my company has been developing for the last year in terms of research, although it does build upon a lot of my previous work, which, as Ellie mentioned, has a lot to do with alternative currencies and economic frameworks, which we just heard about some of those. Mutual credit or time banking, that may be some of the words that you've heard related to that before. The Good Standing is really pushing those ideas into a new space based around a lot of research and experimentation that I've done, that others have done in the past, and seeing sort of what doesn't work. So Good Standing is really building upon that. And our goal is to incentivize the revitalization of communities and local economies. And so what that looks like is creating more productive and fulfilled communities as their own resilient and empowered economic agents. So what's the sort of the problem that we're solving? Really addressing microfinance as an institution, looking at microfinance, broadly in terms of how it's implemented globally, and also in communities here in the US that are continuously cut off from access to building wealth. And so there seems to be these systemic cycles that people get caught within. And a lot of the work that we've done has seen that these new technology frameworks, while they sound sort of good in practice, haven't really made their way into a lot of these communities. I got into this space about 10 years ago around the launch of the Ethereum project because of this reason, because a lot of the potential, and 10 years later, there was still a lot of gap between the ideas and what's happening in practice. So we've been really looking at, but why do these things fail? Why don't they actually make the impact that they say that they're going to have? So abroad, one of the reasons that microfinance is tending to struggle is that often it's getting people into debt who already don't have resources in the first place. So sort of like how payday loans and things like that happen here. And that's been because there's a lot of capital that's moved into the microfinance space, but it's applying the model that works for people who already have wealth and resources. And so it's generating debt for those who are least unable to handle it. And these are from reports from like the World Bank, USAID. They're now starting to say, okay, sometimes microfinance can have sort of short-term benefit, but the long-term impacts are not changing the economic development reality on the ground. So, what could actually do that? On top of that, international aid often doesn't actually end up in the hands of the people who it's intended for. This also happens within the US system. Our company started with a case study at Baltimore where we found out that a lot of the initiatives that are allocated for the government, the money ends up being spent talking about the problem rather than actually solving the problem. And so that's largely like what we're trying to address here, and I'll talk about how we're doing that. We had Andrew Yang here before. If you haven't, he was just on Freakonomics talking about time banking, talking about how do we actually incentivize people to go out and do work within their communities that isn't currently monetarily rewarded. And that's what Good Standing is a platform for doing. But I wanted to bring up here so this idea about UBI. There have been some studies recently, and I recommend checking out some of these studies as well, that are finding kind of similar conclusions as the microfinance research, which is saying UBI on its own isn't significantly transforming the economic realities for people on the ground. It's not necessarily leading to more productivity. It's not necessarily leading to people going out and pursuing a different career path. It may be alleviating some mental stress, but these benefits are often seen as short-term and not long-term. So again, this is not a case against UBI. It's saying, could there be a better application of this concept of UBI? And that's what Good Standing is about, is applying it through a sort of incentive-based model. And then, so we mentioned this, This is from the Guardian Global Development, like 2.1% of donor money is going to local organizations. So we understand that there's a big problem in terms of our shared taxpayer dollars, shared donor dollars, not actually ending up where the impact really needs to happen. So how do we actually start to address these things? So Good Samdek adds an incentive component to the delivery of social services and educational programs, and eventually access to funds and grants. And we'll talk about how we do that. And the idea is to make recipients more engaged and coalesced as a community. So strengthening these ties, actually building in-person relationships, and making them more resilient to corruption, exploitation, and radicalization, which, as we know, is a growing problem here and abroad. Oops, that's not how that's supposed to work, but that's okay. Anyway, so you can see a little bit about the platform. The basic premise is I can help or I need help. So you go on the app and you say, I'm someone who wants to contribute resources, times, skills, funds, or I'm someone who's in need of those things. And ultimately, it's building a network around those types of requests. You can see, sorry, it's not that big, but it's like a little leaderboard. So you can get involved in different challenges in your community. This could be something as simple as working a shift at a local community space. In exchange, you're receiving some hours that you could use that community space. It could also be like something where across the United States, we're doing a program to incentivize third graders to pass their reading exams, because we actually have declining literacy rates in many places around this country, which is a very concerning thing if you think about the underlying root cause of a lot of our issues are people not really being able to think or diagnose what's going on. And so literacy, I would argue, is a huge thing we want to incentivize. So you could be running these challenges. Students who are completing them, they could be certified by their local nonprofit after-school program or here at Department of Education. And then if they complete the challenge, they can earn some sort of reward. And then if you're a mentor, you can also sign up to, participate in this program. So it's a way to sort of coalesce action at scale around the campaigns that we want to see. So you could see lots of different applications of how we could use the platform for a lot of the work that many of you are here doing. So the basic idea is to connect. There's a lot of different organizations across the world who are doing impact-related work. There's a lot of people who probably want to participate, but don't really know how to plug in. In the US, we have like 30% of a decline in volunteerism since 2001. I was on the Freakonomics episode. So, we can think about why that is, but I think a lot of our root issues are not being able to imagine solutions because we can't really imagine a better future. People are sort of like falling, out and out of community. So actually a tool to incentivize us to go out, participate, and also meet people is really addressing some of our root cause issues. Contributing to tasks, to challenges, these can be created by local nonprofits or groups of organizations together. And then rewards. So we have like a badge and incentive program. And I'll talk a little bit about what that could be. And eventually this could also be rewards like funds. There's a lot of interesting ideas about, funding public goods after somebody has completed a task. So running those types of campaigns through the platform. So this is it. This is our first coupon that we're making. So a coupon is something that you earn for completing specific tasks and challenges that are set up front. It is a digital art collectible, but it's not meant to be like a speculative asset. It's something that you have on your profile, but it's also redeemed for something within the real world. So one of the first things that we're exploring is working with some indigenous communities and products that they create, and then earning these coupons through participating in efforts to support their work, or also you can purchase that and that will be redeemable for things that are offered by the women who are making different things in these communities. So that's an example of, how we can create partnerships with brands or other people who want to do something to incentivize work that they want to see get done, but maybe don't necessarily have the resources in-house to do that, that they could partner with all these other different local organizations that are doing that work. In Baltimore, where we started with our case studies, we learned that there's 27,000 nonprofits in Baltimore alone. So one of the things that we're looking at addressing is how could those organizations see themselves as a united infrastructure? That's just in Baltimore. Could we also make the delivery of what they're doing more efficient by seeing themselves as this united infrastructure? And we think incentives play the key role in how to do that. Is that me? Okay. Behavioral change, we all know that it's important to give rewards and feedback for people to make positive changes within their life. Like if you've ever gone through any sort of mental health transformation program, that's sort of at the fundamental philosophy of how to make changes in your own life. So we think this is very important for addressing some of our complex challenges, is giving people the actual feedback loops to make behavioral changes that we know are in the way of the changes that we want to make socially and politically. All right. This is what we're doing. We're launching this hopefully next week, any day now. And I'll give you the links at the end. We have a small grant to do something abroad. Talk about that. So we're working with a group called the Solar Foundation, and we're going to be working in Uganda and Nigeria and setting up a community cooperative training hub for things that the women want to learn there, as well as for more cooperative production of the things that they need within the community. And so just to sort of mention about this approach in general, a lot of the research that we've seen has shown that if you want someone to make a change within their life and sort of access some benefits that they're not already receiving, but they don't have their basic needs met, then there's really not an ability to think about the future. So the first thing that we think about in terms of economic development is, are the basic needs being met? And if they're not, then addressing that first with these sort of cooperative incentive programs, and then introducing what do people want to learn, what skills do they actually want to develop. So these are the types of things we're thinking about. I'd love to talk to you if you have some ideas or projects or things you're working on, and see how we could collaborate within this framework. So I'm just going to go to the end because I think my time's up. And if you want to learn more about the app, I think it should be ready next week. We're going to be doing some events and things here in New York. So there's a QR code, and you can get in touch with me there if you have any ideas about partnerships and collaborations. And thank you so much.
So one thing I appreciate about this, we spoke this morning, Andrew spoke a little bit about new economic possibilities, and his wife takes care of their child. That is, we don't have a economic mechanism to reward that. We don't have an economic, global unity. We don't talk about it publicly yet, but we've got an economy based on meaning, based on meaningful actions. And so what I love about what you're doing is that it's a ridge to that, where you're actually not only recognizing, things that aren't typically acknowledged in current economic systems, but also giving communities the tools to kind of define that for themselves. So just want to show that out.
All right. Thank you so much.